So it's a absolutely beautiful morning in Santa Cruz. It's sunny. There are decent waves. We could all be surfing right now, which is what I would normally be doing, but we're not. We're in here. So I guess today we're mind surfing. So I really wanted to thank the organizers for inviting me to participate in this today, particularly for allowing me to be the first speaker. I wanted to thank the volunteers who've done a wonderful job, all of you for coming. And I wanted to thank the Naval Postgraduate School for allowing me to attend, and the Department of Defense as well. And with that said, I will now complete a promise. What you're about to hear are my views only. They do not reflect the official policy or position of the United States government, the Naval Postgraduate School, or the Department of Defense. I think in the last 20 years, we've witnessed the greatest epochal shift for civilization since the Enlightenment, or the Age of Certainty, as it came to be called, based on an understanding of the physical universe seen through a reductionist lens and the application of Newtonian physics. Call this the information age, or perhaps the age of uncertainty. Our planet, our universe, are understood now to be complex, with nonlinear and probabilistic relationships, quantum physics, and emergent behavior. And yet, it seems to me like many Americans of my generation seem to view the future as if it was a crowded, winding road in a foreign country, down which we are attempting to maneuver a huge gas-guzzling Humvee, looking only in the rearview mirror as we drive, continuously striking parked cars and swearing at all the reckless drivers. So, before being assigned to the Naval Postgraduate School by then Secretary Panetta to apply system and complexity science to strategic thinking, I served as a special assistant for strategy to then Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, the senior military advisor to the President. Admiral Mullen kept me around as a kind of outlier on his staff, a non-conventional, non-linear thinker, a connector of global dots. Probably to his credit, Admiral Mullen didn't always take my advice. Read extremely rarely. But it was while serving in that capacity that I co-wrote with Marine Colonel Mark Mickleby a document we called a National Strategic Narrative, intended to provide a positive vision of who we are as Americans in the 21st century and how we might sustain our enduring interests of prosperity and security, constrained but empowered by our values in an interconnected world. Well, that document was eventually published electronically by the Woodrow Wilson Center for International Scholars and kind of went viral. And in the paper, we maintain that in an open system, power and control are of limited use. The tools of sustainability today are credibility and strength. And not just military strength, but the strength of our economy, the strength of our governance, the strength of our character, the strength of our values, the strength of our citizens. And we gain credibility by consistently demonstrating those values. We also recognize that for Americans with vision, there's as much hope and opportunity in uncertainty as there is risk and threat. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the National Strategic Narrative, I would encourage you to go to that website and provide some ideas, post some comments and ideas. That's what it's there for. Historically, we are a nation that has been built on hope and opportunity. And yet, here we are, 150 years after Lincoln delivered his Gettysburg Address, and we find ourselves at an inflection point in our nation's history, facing an uncertain and complex future characterized by increasing interdependence of people, cultures, markets, ideologies, and by increasing competition for finite resources, chief among them food, water, and energy. This clearly transcends politics. It's much bigger than that. Today, the largest nations of the world are pursuing a model of economic growth fueled largely by petroleum that was pioneered in America through free market capitalism in the 1950s. When petroleum was more plentiful, we were little concerned with the finite nature of resources or with the fact that the world's population would reach 9 billion within 100 years. Now, it's good that these countries are raising the standard of living for hundreds of millions of people. The problem is, it's unsustainable. What we're seeing is an exponential growth in consumption, and we're already exceeding the carrying capacity of the planet, generating anthropogenic effect in ocean acidification, soil depletion, atmospheric change. The Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii now routinely records atmospheric CO2 levels that exceed 400 parts per million, something that hasn't happened on Earth in 2.5 million years. We are truly at a Darwinian moment in time when we must adapt our behavior as a species if we are going to evolve and survive. We are rapidly evolving beyond the usefulness of many fossil fuels. And yet, it's as if we're breathlessly racing the rest of the world for the last pack of cigarettes, little mindful of the ill effects that might have on our health. In Lincoln's day, we were an agriculture-based economy. We then used innovation, hard work, entrepreneurialism, and a free market to become an industrial giant. Today, our economy is 80% service-based. That's the same unsustainable path that was taken by the Romans and the Brits before us. Throughout our history, Americans have excelled across the spectrum of human endeavor in science, math, space, the arts, sports. But it's hard to sustain that when our kids are ranked 25th in math and 23rd in science among developed nations. Thomas Edison said, "We often fail to recognize opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and it looks like work." Hard work generates opportunity, but it's not enough. In the National Strategic Narrative, we proposed reprioritizing our national resources to sustain our prosperity and security. And when I think of prosperity, I think in terms of well-being, not gross domestic product. When I think of security, I think of freedom from anxiety, not defense. So the first priority was education. Einstein said we can't solve our problems by using the same thinking that created them. We need to bring critical thinking and divergent thinking and innovative thinking and personal accountability into our schools if we are going to regain our competitiveness. Our school system has changed very little in well over 100 years. Back then, 60% of Americans worked on farms or near farms. Today, it's less than 2%. And yet, every summer, we let our kids out of school for 3 months to do what? To help with the harvest? Really? We outspend every nation in the world on education. We need a better return on investment. And there are a lot of efficacious systems that we could be pursuing. The second priority was security, freedom from attack but also freedom from economic collapse and poverty, freedom from pandemic disease, freedom from hateful ideologies. Those are things that not one agency of the government alone can secure, nor the government itself. This is something that has to be taken on in a public-private partnership from all of us. And the third priority was access to and development of renewable and reusable resources. Chief among those, probably, a clean and renewable source of energy to fuel a new engine for the global economy, food and water to feed a growing global population. All of this begins with responsible citizenship at the community level, right here, right now. There's a big difference between being a resident and a citizen. Residents pay rent, and they don't often care what shape they leave the place in. Citizens take ownership. They share responsibility. Our kids recognize the opportunity there is in uncertainty. Their gaze is not fixed on the rearview mirror. We need an education system and a sense of community that encourages them to be good stewards of our planet and enables them to define a new legacy of greatness for our nation based on innovation and hard work. Sustainability captures well the intent of the preamble of our Constitution, to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. We need to equip our posterity right here in the communities of America, starting right here in Santa Cruz. We need to equip our posterity with the tools they need to create a better future for follow-on generations. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.